Hello and welcome to another episode of Preparing for Work, where we explore the transition between university and the workplace. And today we're going to talk about career mistakes. My name's Carla, I'm from the Engineering Careers team, and I'll be taking you through this episode. So before we get into the main part of the film, I'd like to just give you that time and space to think about how you might approach the situation, as it might be more of a when than an if, because things do happen, particularly early on in your careers. So I'm going to present you a scenario, and I'd like you just to pause the video for just a minute and think about how you might handle this situation. So congratulations, you've been at this job for 6 weeks, well done. But today, unfortunately, is the day that you've realised in your work that you have made a mistake, not a typo, but one that will have far-reaching implications and potentially affect others in your role too. So I'd like you to think of two things. Firstly, what are you going to be feeling? And secondly, what steps are you going to take? So it's important to think about the emotion, because your emotions will dictate what you actually do. So naturally, as human beings, when we're faced with things that happen out of the blue, we're not really adapted to change very well. So I think it's easy to panic, to worry, to be frustrated, to beat ourselves up, to be defensive, to be embarrassed, to lose sleep over things, to even sort of dismiss or downplay something. And I think it's just indicative of the fight or flight response. So your sort of reactions are completely normal. It's really what we do with those things that really count. And so the next steps are really, really important. So your manager will want to know 3 different things: how it came to be, how you're going to rectify the situation, and how is it never going to happen again. So as long as you can answer those 3 things, then they should be okay, because we do expect that early on in your career you're going to have issues, and you're going to make mistakes, and it's fine. In fact, it's almost expected of graduates to make a mistake occasionally, and you're not going to be sacked over it unless it's a massive, humongous mistake, okay? But it's really, the key is how you deal with the mistake. So I'm going to go through a few steps that might be of interest and of help and use to you. So one of the key things that you need to deal with is identifying the issue. So how did it come about? What is the issue? Who is it going to affect? And how can you rectify it as soon as possible? And you may be tempted to cover up, and this is a natural human emotion to go through, because again, it's the fight or flight response, and at this point you'll probably want to fly as far away as possible, ideally to Spain. So you just want to be able to be professional and to be able to deal with the situation as quickly as possible. And the second thing is that you don't always have to deal with things on your own. And in fact, in some cases, you actually won't be able to deal with these things on your own. You might need your teams or your client support in rectifying the situation. But it's really understanding how the mistake came to be so that it doesn't happen again. So putting things in place so that it doesn't happen again, whether it's systems, processes, balances, checks, quality control, whatever it looks like. Maybe peer reviewing, I don't know, but it's worth thinking about how to do that, because eventually people, whether it's your client, your line manager, whoever it is going to need some reassurance that it won't happen again. And I think it's important also to tell the people affected and think about steps which to take that you might be able to do to be able to rectify the situation. So sometimes I find mind maps quite helpful to work through situations, particularly when I've got quite heightened emotion, and it's quite grounding to do that. Just on that, just to be really clear, I think it's important for you to take a step back just for a couple of minutes and breathe. And just be able to have that clarity. You're not going to have complete clarity of mind, because your emotions will play until it's sorted out and resolved and all over. But I think it's important for you to feel some modicum of control before you go into sorting the situation out. So mistakes will happen. It's a natural part of life. In fact, we expect you to make mistakes early on in your careers because the important thing for you is to know how you deal with them, putting strategies in place to make sure they don't happen again. Your professionalism is tested because you're presented with situations that come out of the blue, high pressure situations that you don't regularly encounter, and being able to deal with them is important. So don't lose heart. I know it's scary, but think about the things that we've spoken about in that diagram. So I mentioned the fight or flight response earlier on, and I think in situations where you've got to fess up and be able to admit things that aren't necessarily in your comfort zone, i.e. mistakes, it can be a very natural reaction and response to a situation. And believe me, you will feel like you want to fly very, very far away. But I think it's important to be professional, to understand that this is part and parcel of being a graduate or an intern, and that mistakes happen. And we kind of almost expect it early on in your career. This happens, right? But it's not the mistake itself that necessarily matters. It's what you do with that mistake and what you learn from the mistake. That's really going to be the making of you. And let's face it, when you make a mistake, you're not going to do it again, are you? Or it's pretty unlikely. So, I would sort of try and think about how you deal with it. So covering up is definitely something that will come back and haunt you. I absolutely guarantee you. I've seen graduates where situations have occurred and even months or years later things come up. So you just definitely don't want it following your career. Let's just deal with the situation. The other thing is not to dismiss or downplay it, because I've also seen people do that, and unfortunately that has a sort of knock-on effect to their reputation. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like the video if you found it useful, and also to subscribe to our channel for further information.